Welcome to Day 4 of Daily December. We got another Star Wars Collapse of the Republic Talent Tree Guide and Review, this time with the Clone Commander. Now, the Clone Commander is a leader character, much like Rise of the Separatist Clone Officer, except where in that one was more of a ground-focused, normal combat leader type character. This one is more of a mass combat-focused character. We also have stuff that will help you with leadership checks in general, or just combat in general, buffing the party in a leader type role. Also, you're a leader of clones, which makes sense as a clone commander, but you get some talents that will help you deal solely with clones. Let's start with those, why not? So, First Among Brothers, a ranked talent we've seen before in the previous book, especially the clone, probably only the clone officer, where you have a chance of being able to pass out some bonuses from your check to your fellow clone people, which obviously will scale in usefulness depending on what kind of campaign you run. Maybe you're doing a Dawn of Rebellion era where there's only a few teetering old codger clones running around, at which point won't be quite as helpful for you. But if you're doing a typical Clone Wars campaign, you're going to be using it all the time on your teammates, on NPCs that you're leading, all that. We have another new one, which even more so helps you leading clones. This one, though, deals with not just being better in general, although it is that, but also really the big help with this is that you can have an easier time avoiding just massive disasters on your leadership checks, which is great. Now for being a leader in general, not just with clones, we have Formation Tactics, a basic and improved version, where basically it acts as a defensive buff to allies within the encounter, and you can improve it to where it's easier to accomplish, and also it can last longer than it typically would, which is wonderful. I'm a much bigger fan of this than I am Field Commander. As useful as it is to be able to dull out maneuvers and whatnot to your party, I much prefer just a defensive buff, probably more widely useful more often. Now let's move on to the mass combat stuff. First of all, you can use a different skill to help with your mass combat checks than leadership. This represents a more knowledgeable leader, also sort of within the same vein of that. You can use the same skill in place of any other skill. Just not that often, but you can use it with your strategic, careful planning to do any other thing good. Shoot someone, why not? Or maybe do a medical check to make sure someone doesn't die, or hack the door when no one else can. You need to get the door open so you can retreat, or otherwise your men will get slaughtered, blah blah blah. Whatever you need it to be. So we have some great flexibility there. And also, when you take this talent tree, you are such an inspiring presence that even if you can't communicate with your forces, or you're not there, or whatever else, they still get some benefit from you. Like, they do it for you. Let's score one for the Gipper kind of a thing. So yeah, your troops will fight on, even if you don't do anything. I guess you could just sit on your ass and just let them go. You still get some benefits. We also have a talent which gives you the ability to make a sacrifice, which there's a wide variety of things it could be to make that sacrifice. Maybe a character, or an important item, or something, or just some harm done to you. Make the sacrifice, assuming the GM is appropriate and probably makes narrative sense. Make the sacrifice, and then you can manipulate the dice pool. You have a better chance of succeeding at your mass combat. We also have a pair of talents which should help you with either mass combat or just regular combat. One where you can put like a speed debuff on a vehicle, and another one where it's kind of flexible and abstract. You have a chance of being able to reveal some important story thing, something that will give you an advantage in the combat. I keep thinking of the Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones, when Littlefinger and Sansa were with the horses over the hill, and they took out the guys in the circle. You can do that. That's what you can do. And to finish things off, we got some general leadership help, some knowledge help. I guess you're kind of more of an academic, learned type of experienced officer or something. You get some help with certain types of critical injuries, and of course we have to have a rank of Clanker Killer. I think they all do, right? Don't they all the clone people I think they all have at least one rank of Clanker Killer, so you get a little bit of help with your combat in general, well, against droids, but depending on your campaign, it could be combat in general. Its usefulness scales up depending on the setting. Anyway, so, Clone Commander. How should you build it, and should you build it in the first place? Would you want to play as one of these? As far as building it, what matters more than anything really is the knowledge warfare skill. more than anything. You can use that to substitute for, in different ways, other things. You could just use knowledge warfare instead. There's a couple different examples of that, which is really nice. So obviously intellect is going to be important, but also you do use leadership, and so leadership is going to be important. And also you do want to fight, because depending on the situation, you might be in the thick of things, in a battle of your own, while also trying to lead people. You know, you're taking fire while giving out orders or something, possibly, if you want to keep things interesting, I guess. Otherwise, everyone else is fighting in their own encounter, and you're just, oh, is it my turn? Mass combat. Alright. So, intellect, agility, and presence are the ones I like the most, though you don't have a lot of actual defenses, really. Maybe you could argue a well-rounded build. Brawn, throw brawn in there, or... Although, really, I don't like spreading it that thin. I would rather just forget agility at that point, and just go in with a vibro axe or something, you know, or... get one of those bayonets you can put on a rifle or something, and mostly you just stab people with your rifle, because I just wouldn't want to spread the stats too thin. Best build that I would like would be a 4-3-3 brawn or agility, I guess, and then intellect and presence. Which one would I give the 4 to? I kind of want to say, and this depends on how quickly you go through your tree, leadership should have lowest priority and make it one of the 3s, because you do get a decent amount of help with it, and really you want it for that one thing, that one defensive buff that you put on people on a semi-regular, or probably regular basis. It depends. It gets easier, and so maybe you don't need, you definitely don't need a 4 in presence to help you with that. Get a rank or 2 in leadership, have a 3, and you'll be fine. It might be kind of a bummer to whiff on a roll or 2 early on, but once you lower the difficulty, you should be just fine. And then between knowledge warfare and your combat spec, I kind of want to say combat spec, because really, what are you going to be doing for a while? It's a while before you get that regular defensive buff, and for the most part, unless you have a mass combat check in there, which you get a little bit of help early on, although really that's just less raw help and more just changing the thing that you do mass combat with, you might be better off having a really strong combat characteristic. Agility or brawn, get that early on, start with that. If agility is the combat spec, you go with, for shooting, keeping yourself more at a distance, probably keep you a bit safer, not a bad way to go. You really want that brawn to be a 2. You don't want a 1 in brawn. Oh, well, you're probably playing as a clone, most likely, so that won't happen. But, reskinning can happen. You don't necessarily have to be a clone species to play these. Depends on your GM, I guess. But yeah, like the 4 in the combat spec, brawn or agility, whichever your preference is, and then just kind of forget about it from there. You'll get some help with Clanker Killer, assuming this is a droid-focused campaign, which most likely it will be, and, you'll be just fine with the combat, and then really focus on getting the skills up, especially that knowledge warfare skill. Get that up as high as you can. You get a lot of help from that, and really the 3 in intellect should be enough to help you with the knowledge warfare checks that you need. Although you could make a case for a 4 intellect because of the way one of the knowledge warfare checks works with one of the talents. Like, you might want it really, really powerful just to get anything out of it, just because of the type of check that it is. But you also could make the counter case that by the time you get to the point where you have that talent, your ranks in warfare would have exceeded the characteristic, and you would have a stronger dice pool, and it would be strong enough. It'd be fine, maybe, arguably. It depends. But also you can occasionally use knowledge warfare in place of a different skill sometimes. I still like my plan better, the high combat stat, intellect, and presence as your 3s in a 4-3-3 build. Alright, should you play them? Yeah, it's a perfectly fine leader. You're a leader who specializes mostly in leading clones. Ideally, you're leading clones, and you definitely have a bit of a mass combat edge, but not a huge mass combat edge, and you can help lead people in general. My only complaint, and, it depends on your campaign, if you do have a campaign that's not very clone heavy, you don't have clones in your party or NPCs for you to constantly point around, it is going to be a while before you're really more than a decent dice pool hacking away at droids. And so then all you have is, your character, basically, which you're a clone trying to RP a clone that's different enough from the other clones where you feel like it's your own. Like, that could be fun, but also you're a clone. That's hard to do. I think it's most important, more than anything, to have the tree really feel kind of unique, and you have some kind of there right out of the gate to where you have interest in your character mechanically at the very least, because it might be kind of difficult to really have a strong interest in your character from a role-playing perspective right away. It might take a while. Anyway, that is it for today. Next time I have no idea what we're doing. I have to check the schedule. Patreon. Look, go to my patrons know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing, but my patrons do, because they give me money. Bye.